Right, Suella Braverman has been talking tough this week. She's warned that political correctness has created a blind spot for Islamic terrorism to flourish. It comes after a review of the government's counter-extremism programme Prevent, which found Islamist radicalisation had not been tackled effectively. She also wrote in the Telegraph today, in the Times today, I believe, that she was appalled at the story of police recording a non-crime hate incident after an autistic teenage boy at a Wakefield school dropped a Quran that had been damaged. So, does she have a point? Is political correctness blinding our police and our blasphemy laws creeping back into our country by the back door through those who take offence? Joining me is former Metropolitan Police Detective Peter Blexley and author and broadcaster Rebecca Reid. Well, we'll take this one by one, shall we? Peter, talking about Islamic terrorism, Suella Braverman was at this conference, this counter-extremism conference. She suggested that political correctness is allowing Islamic extremism to flourish, even if it's not violent extremism, non-violent extremism.
Well, political correctness, of course, can mean many different things to many different people, and to some people, the mere mention of the expression is toxic. However, Suella Braverman, perhaps slightly clumsily, has got a bit of a point here, because I prefer to use the expression afraid to tell the truth is creating a bit of a blind spot. Because we've seen on so many occasions law enforcement, because of the colour of somebody's skin or because of somebody's faith, being afraid, yes, afraid, to act without fear or favour, to act properly, to arrest perpetrators and to prevent crime. So it comes as no surprise to me that this might be seeping into counter-terrorism work.
Rebecca, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Do you think that Suella Braverman and Peter there have a point, that sometimes we are afraid to call a spade and this can prevent us from dealing with extremism and then can go on to violent extremism?
I think the issue is there are certainly people who are afraid to be perceived as racist, but there is also an endemic issue with racism in policing, and the problem remains that when people are profiled on the colour of their skin by people who are in positions of authority, that creates a distrust for the police, which I think is entirely understandable. The same distrust that I see in a lot of women, given the current circumstances with members of the Met being under investigation for sexual impropriety. So I do understand that, look, I'm a white person. I hate the idea of saying the wrong thing. I put my foot in my mouth trying not to accidentally say something racist before, but in the same token, the police need to be able to navigate that difficult gap between not being a racist, but also, I understand, not being perceived as being racist.
Peter, I think when it comes to Islamism, we do have a special case. I mean, Suella Braverman has come out as well in the Times today very strongly to say that no, we don't have blasphemy laws in this country. This, of course, refers to the case in Wakefield. A boy allegedly dropped a Quran, it got lightly scuffed, and then all hell broke loose. And the mother was brought to what one could say was a Sharia-style trial with a police officer present, a counsellor present, community leaders present. Surely the police should be prioritising the safety of children. The boy has been given death threats as a result of this, rather than people who were offended because their religion may have been offended in their view.
I saw some of the clips, the stills as well from that meeting, and to be perfectly frank, I was rather horrified because it cuts really to the malaise at the heart of so much policing these days, and that is that the fluffy 21st century police service has tried to be friends to everybody. It has this phrase, community engagement, and it's reached out with every minority group, campaign group, special interest group you can imagine, whilst largely forgetting the overwhelming majority of people who are law-abiding sit somewhere round about the centre and would like to know the name of their local neighbourhood cop. If police continue to pander whilst forgetting the law-abiding majority, then they are just going to continue to go down this fluffy route where they failed so many, and trusting policing as it is now is plummeting.
I mean, Rebecca, it is quite extraordinary that this situation, incident, if you can call it that, I think it's more trivial than an incident, was recorded by the police as a non-crime hate incident. What on earth is that about?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you should be able to burn a Quran. I think you should be able to burn a Bible. I think you should be able to burn a Torah. I think if you paid for it and it's yours, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. It's a book. And if you don't believe in the religion, it's literally just a book. I found this uncomfortable too. What I dislike about it is that it's being used as a backdoor for people who just genuinely don't like Islam. Talk about how multiculturalism has failed. This is a really unpleasant experience, and I too found watching that sort of apology thing really uncomfortable, especially the fact that she covered her hair, and she's not somebody who covers her hair religiously for herself. I hated that a lot.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can suddenly use that as a stick to beat
But Rebecca, the examples, I get your point, I take your point, but the examples are mounting up. I mean, there is a teacher, as Suella Braverman said, there is a teacher still in hiding in Batley or wherever he's gone because he showed a picture of the Prophet Muhammad in a religious studies class. Yeah. I mean, the police, you know, there are angry protests. The police are seen to not do much. You have self-appointed community leaders talking about how offended they are. And it does seem to me, and to a lot of the public, I'm sure, that we seem to indulge this nonsense.
I mean, I think part of the problem is that these stories are unusual and shocking, which is why we hear so much about them. That's the nature of news, right? We always talk about the thing that's surprising. We don't talk about things that aren't surprising. So I don't think that this is the significant scale of problem that people are talking about it as if it is. I think it's that we get more upset about it because it is shocking. But I'm the first person to say that I think policing is failing. You know, I go on the channel every single week and say, defund the police. I think policing is failing. I disagree that it's because it's too fluffy. I agree. I think it's more to do with, I don't think fluffiness got us those WhatsApp groups talking, you know, using racial slurs, talking about raping women. But I think it's interesting that on both sides of the debate, we both agree that policing isn't working. And if people, you know, really on other sides are both saying it, then surely that's got to be true.
But Peter, Rebecca says these incidents are few and far between. Are they? Because we've been reading for years of Sharia-style trials in this country. We've seen protests over cartoons and over depictions of the Prophet Muhammad. We've seen councillors indulging this. This isn't just a tiny fringe issue, is it?
This is policing pandering. And when police pander to the special needs or the special sensibilities of every single minority interest group there is, rather than focusing on what the public want, this is the route we go down. This is why confidence in the police tumbles. Because when they see all these resources being put into things that, quite frankly, is not of huge concern to many, many millions of people who don't want money wasted on police cars being painted in rainbow colours, for example, the public say, well, where are the police for me? I had my car stolen last night. I had my house burgled while I was away. My friend, my family member got assaulted, and investigations are closed down within a matter of hours with, quite frankly, nothing being done about it. Until policing gets back to the basics, which is keeping the streets safe, preventing crime, investigating crime promptly and swiftly when it happens, then the public are just going to shake their heads and really the plummeting of trust and confidence in the police is utterly catastrophic.
Yes, I'm sure there are many unresolved burglaries in West Yorkshire and in Wakefield that people would prefer police officers to get stuck into and handle. Thank you very much, both of you. Rebecca Reed, author and broadcaster, and Peter Blexley, former Metropolitan Police detective. Some room for an agreement there. The head teacher of Kettlethorpe High School, where the Quran incident occurred, Tudor Griffiths, said in a statement, "We would like to reassure all our community that the Holy Book remains fully intact and that our initial inquiries indicate there was no malicious intent by those involved. However, we have made it very clear that their actions did not treat the Quran with the respect it should have. So those involved have been suspended and we will be working with them to ensure they understand why their actions were unacceptable." I mean, goodness gracious me, that does sound a little bit like we have some kind of blasphemy law in this country.